All right, thank you everybody for coming to the Artist Talk for When the World Looks Away, a solo exhibition of work by Sam Marroquin. We're very lucky to have her today. She is a Washington State artist from Vancouver, and this body of work is exceptionally exciting because it is a very large representation of the entirety of this grouping that she's been working on. Before we begin, I'd like to please ask you to make sure your phones are silenced so that we don't have any interruption. So, Sam is from Vancouver, and she received her Bachelor's of Art from the University of Washington and her Master of Art from Eastern Washington University. Her work has been featured nationally as well as regionally. And this is our first time in the Alexander Gallery, so I'm sure it won't be the last, but please join me in welcoming Sam.
Thank you. All right. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for coming. I really appreciate it. I hope you had a chance to walk around and take a look at the art a little bit. I just would like to open up by starting a little discussion. So I have a question for you guys. I want to know, where do you get your news? Yeah.
I get mine by reading it off of my phone.
Reading it off your phone? Anyone else? Yeah.
Sometimes I get news updates in my browser apps on my phone.
From the browser apps, so from Google or Edge. Okay. Anyone else? Where do you get your news from? Where do you learn what's going on in the world around you?
New York Times.
New York Times. All right.
Stephen Colbert.
Stephen Colbert. All right. Our comedians. Yeah?
Various news channels and my family and often send articles and stories to each other.
Okay. Any particular sources that you like?
I mean, I can't think of any in particular. I do it with the article.
Okay. All right. Are there any other thoughts about the news or where you get your news sources from? Yeah.
I get from all of like social media apps like TikTok, Instagram, and just scrolling and see what comes up.
Okay. Yeah. A lot of people get news from social media apps.
Talk radio works.
And talk radio. It's interesting that there are all kinds of sources, all different kinds of places to get your news from these days. There are choices out there for sure. I guess one thing that, because it's a big issue in this art that I'm making, is the news and how it's presented. What I'm always thinking about what is being omitted in the news, what slant a certain story is taking, what stories are being manipulated and for what purposes, because that happens in the news a lot, as I'm sure all of you are aware. I also think about the difference in who is presenting it. Is it a person who is presenting it as a first-hand witness to what is going on, or is it an influencer, a news influencer that is just kind of reposting different things from different news sources? Because I think that really makes a difference too in how you're getting your news. So one thing, another question I was going to ask you then is, what do you think qualifies to make a news source reliable? Any thoughts?
We would like to think they're actually on the ground. And they're reporting it factually, good, bad, or indifferent. I'm not sure we see a lot of that these days. I think we're seeing a lot of people who are retabbing it for their purposes. So there's lots of things that are going on in the world that we probably don't know about.
Yeah, so on the ground, first-hand reporting, facts. Yeah.
Well, as traumatizing as these pictures are, the fact that what I love about them is they're the truth. It's not what we want, you know. Sometimes we hear on the news what they think we want to hear. We don't want to hear about all this going on, but you've painted the truth. We don't like the truth, but it is the truth. And I admire the fact that you painted the truth, you know.
So we want truth in our news,
Yeah.
absolutely. And how do we know that something is truthful? How do we know that an outlet is telling us the truth? Any other thoughts on the way news is presented to us?
Unless you're on the ground, it's pretty hard. It's pretty hard to do that. It's just like I was saying, I've been down to Mexico with the church on mission, and there's some beautiful places in Mexico, but there's some places there that would make our poor people look rich. But until you go to those places, you wouldn't know that.
Yeah,
That was
absolutely.
That supposition, I mean, that was, you know, because I had eyeballs on them. I talked to those people I worked with.
Absolutely. So, any other thoughts on, yeah?
The Israeli-Palestinian conflict, and I think what we all need to be clear is that it's very unclear. There's a Palestinian side, there's an American side, there's an Israeli side. The Israeli side is full of this kind of stuff that dates back to their origins, right? The Jewish people. There's and most recently what happened to them during the Holocaust, which is denied by some people. So I think there's a lot of truths and distruths. And I think this speaks to one truth, but I think the Israeli people, this is Palestinian people, have a truth as well.
I appreciate that so much because, yeah, there's absolutely always two sides to the story.
Well, probably 20 sides to this.
Yeah, or 20 or more than that, but yeah.
There are Jews in the United States who support Palestine, but there are Jews in the United States who, you know, don't think that there's just a lot of thought around this, and therefore a lot of lack of clarity and understanding. And as you're talking about news sources, giving us not enough information.
Yeah, so the truth and understanding more than one perspective on the story can be a really important factor when you're thinking about news. So a little bit about me, because I'm sure that you're wondering, you're probably thinking, well, is she Palestinian or does she have any connections to Palestine? No, I'm actually, I'm just American. I'm from Spokane originally, and now I live in Vancouver, Washington. I started looking at the Israeli-Palestinian conflict probably back in about 2005 because it was something I didn't know very much about. And I wanted to learn more. I was like, what's really going on? And so I started studying it and reading about it and reading the history of it to figure out what are all these short clips on the news about? Like, what is going on? And so I wanted to share just a little kind of a brief overview about the conflict with you today. Some of you, I'm sure, are probably really aware of it, but some of you maybe not so much. So Palestine has been a conflicted area for many thousands of years. But I want to focus just on the last century or so. So in 1917, during the World War I, Britain wanted to make a home for the Jewish people in Palestine. And so under the Balfour Declaration, the British troops took control of the territory from the Ottoman Empire. And then moving forward, then there were Jewish people immigrating to Palestine. And from 1918 to 1947, the Jewish population increased from about 6% to 33%, which led to the Palestinian revolts. And then meanwhile, Zionism emerged as a political ideology, and they campaigned for the creation of a homeland for Jews in Palestine. And then at the same time, armed Zionist militias began to attack Palestinians, forcing them to flee. And then in 1947, the UN made a partition plan, which was never actually put into place. But they proposed dividing Palestine into 2 states and giving about 55% to the Jews and about 45% to the Arabs. But then before that plan was initiated in 1948, more than 750,000 Palestinians were ethnically cleansed from their homes by Zionist militias, and this mass exodus became known as the Nakba. Now, actually, I forgot here. I have a few visuals I wanted to hand out to you, so if you guys wanted to take a look at these and pass them around, and if anyone wants to keep them at the end, that would be just fine.
Want me to pass them around?
Oh, sure, that would be great. Thank you. And so you can take a look at these maps, and then there's also on the back, if you'd like, there's a QR code. I got this information from an article off of Al Jazeera News, and so if you wanted to visit that link, you can look at this history in a little bit more detail. And so the Nakba, a mass exodus of people were forced out of their homes. And then in 1967, another 300,000 Palestinians were displaced by the 6-year war. And then Israel began occupying Gaza and the West Bank. And then there were the Oslo Accords, in which the leaders of Palestine and Israel got together and tried to achieve peace. And then a second agreement was made, which divided in 1995. That second agreement was made. And they wanted to divide the West Bank into 3 separate parts. And then the Oslo Accords slowly broke down as more Israeli settlements were built on Palestinian land, and then a separation wall was built in between the communities, and it restricted mobility. And then in 2007, Israel placed a blockade on Palestine, and it limited the supplies that they allowed to come in and out of Palestine, the Palestinian territories. And then, of course, in October of 2023, the Hamas group of Palestine attacked Israel from within Israel and killed at least 1,200 people. It was a horrific attack. And then, of course, they retaliated, and here we are today. And so, as of to date, the official death toll of Palestinians is 71,400, but they think the numbers are probably actually quite a bit higher because so many people were just buried under the rubble. And there are many more injured. Most of the people who have been hurt have been women and children, or, well, a significant majority of the people who were injured were women and children, innocent people, you can say. And, well, I don't know, I think probably you've heard some other facts. So that's kind of just a quick look at that in a nutshell. And of course, there's probably a lot more details to it that you could look into. But I'd like to talk a little bit about my artwork now and my process. So I start my work by listening to the news, figuring out what's going on, paying attention to not only the history, but what's currently happening. And this is, of course, primarily from the Palestinian perspective. However, I really just want to get to the heart of what it means to be in a war, like what it is, war is not good for anybody, either side. There's injuries on both sides of the gun, you can always say, but there are, Yeah, I'm trying to look at this, get to the heart of humanity and just look at the suffering and look at what's going on, because this could really be in any of the warring countries that, things like this could be taking place, Yemen, Syria, Iran, Darfur, anywhere around the world where there are conflicts, you might see images like this. And so that's really what I want to focus on, is getting to, why we're having wars and, the pointlessness of harming so many people. So my process, after I've looked at the news, I know what I want to do. I look at the images. Spend a lot of time looking at images and collecting images and thinking about what I really want to say with my artwork. That's a big issue. But then I'll take my paper and I tape down the edges so I have a nice flat surface to work on. And then I will paint in some kind of a quick background. And then I work using my non-dominant hand, and I'll draw in charcoal the figures and the basic composition that I'm making. And then I take matte medium and I go over the top of those charcoal lines with the matte medium, and just very gently, I don't paint it on, I actually spread it on. I use kind of a spreading tool to spread it down, and then I let it dry. And then that matte medium seals down the charcoal so it won't move around when I'm working on the rest of the painting. And then from there, I will paint in the colors and paint in the figures, and then I'll go back in and add the text. And again, I draw the text using my non-dominant hand. It gives me just some really nice, non-dominant hand. So I'm right-handed, so then I'll use my left hand for it. I think it just, it gives kind of a different quality to the lines. It makes it more sketchy and a little bit loose, which was really what I was wanting to achieve in this series. It's just kind of a rapid execution, loose lines, almost in an abstract manner.
And then do you go back with your acrylics, or is that what you're using?
Yeah, these are all acrylics, and so I go back in. After I've done the charcoal lines, I'll go back in and add in the acrylic colors, kind of paint in the figures, you might say, and then add in the text. And sometimes I'll put down the text and then wipe it away and write it again, and I'll do that multiple times sometimes to give it a kind of a shaky feeling almost, or maybe to emphasize certain words or certain subjects, because you can see that the text really becomes a part of the composition, but also emphasizes the mood of the painting or the meaning of it.
So do you try to create a base background, or do you just go to your figures and then go to your background?
Yeah, I initially go in and paint in a background. It's usually some sort of a mix of different colors, big brush strokes, using my whole arm, going right across there. And I do the background first, and then the charcoal outlines, and then going in and painting in the figures and the composition. And yeah, that's basically my process. So are there any other questions? Yeah.
I'm just curious, because I feel like a lot of art making, probably this in particular, involves a lot of looking. And I'm thinking that you were probably spending a lot of time looking very closely at some very disturbing images. And how does that register with you as a human, with you in your body, with you as an artist maker?
That's a great question. I think that it is hard looking at all the images. It's hard. There's a lot of hard images out there, and it's hard to look at them. I think that's maybe why I do it, though, because they are hard and because somebody needs to be looking at them. This is part of our history now. This is part of, when we're basically looking at a genocide that's being live streamed into our devices where we can all see it, it's affecting all of us. But I think that that's another thing, it's why I do this, because it's also an outlet for me. Yeah.
What I like about all these drawings is, first off, how did you work these again? I know you
I'm sorry,
said
what?
somewhere that you used your non-dominant hand to
Yeah.
get all these jagged images there. No, just the text, not the images. Right.
Actually, the images too, I did with my non-dominant hand, yeah.
It really brings out this sort of tragedy to things. Like you can really feel the pain all these people are going through.
Well, thank you.
Pretty good with your left hand. Good say.
Yeah.
It's becoming more of an acquired skill.
Yeah, well, it's definitely, I get a different quality of line with my left hand than I do with my right hand. I know some people are ambidextrous and can do like equal quality with each, but mine, I guess, are different.
Other questions? Or?
Thank you, Sam.